touch a first female. And when I say it felt good, ooh, like the camel noodle soup, good, good. I'm not gay no more. Good, I am delivered. Good, good, like the camel noodle soup. Good, I don't like men no more. We've been gone. It felt good. 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 Good. Like the camel noodle soup. Good.
That's a good jam.
Oh my gosh, I love that one.
I gotta tell you, we sacrifice monetization for you guys with stuff like this, so we're probably missing out on like $1.61 or something.
if it's a really good video, yeah.
You won't be able to buy his chicken noodle soup with that. What an L.
Terrible. Yeah, look who surprised us. Nick surprised us. I'm a little tired, guys. Forgive me. I was texting Robert earlier, and I'm like, should we just go solo tonight or get Nick? He goes, get Nick, because it's good when we build a little rapport, makes Rob a little more comfortable, and he'll just blurt things out a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
The guest a little better. So
very true.
Nick's like family now.
I guess first thing, did you see in the Telegram what is going on with Christopher?
No.
So his neighbor started a fire like by their shared fence line. And when he had texted about half an hour ago, that fire got out of control and it had already engulfed 50 acres. So they're evacuating their house. He's setting up a medical staging area because he's EMS. So we probably should say like a Hail Mary for them right now, honestly.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Dang, yeah, let's do that for sure.
Okay. You want to start, Anthony?
Yeah, sure. Name of the Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen.
Yeah, dude, I didn't even hear that.
Yeah.
I didn't either, but it's not surprising because this area is literally a matchbox. It is so dry right here.
So did it get his house yet?
No, not the last time I'd heard, but I haven't checked for a while.
Let me check this Telegram. Just take a peek. You guys can keep going. I'm
Okay.
gonna peek around.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. Speaking of fires, the one thing we didn't talk to Hitchborn about was the Maui fires, because that whole thing. I mean, we can't even talk about it on here because.
Yeah, that's true. It's one of those.
Like, the conspiracy theories around that thing are so insane. Well, Margot, I wasn't neglecting the Telegram. I'm getting ready for my daughter's party, which is on Saturday. We're having her birthday party in the backyard, and we're having like 100 people here. And today I went into work, and they called a heat wave, and they canceled us, and they sent us all home at like 8:30 this morning. So I actually had a chance to get some of the stuff done that I wasn't able to get done last weekend because I was out hanging out.
What is like a New York City heat wave? Like
85 degrees apparently.
85 degrees.
It's so they'll cancel us if it's 90 and on the rise. But today was like 88 and on the rise, but it was ridiculous humidity.
Sure,
so like 88 with like high humidity, you feel like you're going to die. And what happened was
that's called like a normal Tuesday in spring here, I guess.
Well, what happened was they had a heat wave like 2 years ago, and there was one of the contractors hit a power line in the ground, and we wound up getting a blackout in the city, and it lasted like 4 days. And there were people who normally have to like keep their insulin cold and all these different things. Like there was so many people like with this blackout that it cost the city millions and millions of dollars. Like unbelievable damage was caused by people died from it. And the city sued Con Ed for all that money because people like restaurants, all their food went bad. I mean, restaurants were literally just giving food away. They were like, take it. It's going to go bad. We have nothing to do with it. It was a 4-day stretch. So ever since that happened, now any day that's like 88 and on the rise, they just shut down all construction. And usually we have other contractors we're allowed to do work for and stuff, but Con Ed's just like very.
Well, if it helps you, there is cool coming because it was 50 here in Minnesota too. So hopefully that cool air keeps moving east.
I hope it keeps moving south because this whole week has been the same as it's been for the last 3 months, which is 105. 105.
Yeah.
Everything's dead outside.
We haven't heard the end of it from Jason and Mark.
I sent a picture yesterday, a screenshot to Jason and Mark of the forecast, and all I got back from Mark was a certain emoji. I'm not going to say which one.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
He was really angry that it's like cool where Rob is. That Rob, do you guys get like, is it fall very early by you? Like it's already starting.
Right? Leaves are changing.
Leaves are changing already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be at peak in a few weeks.
Yeah, like the water's still 80 degrees over here. It's crazy. Like this is a very long. So it feels like the weather has been really strange, but it feels like maybe the seasons are kicking back a little bit, right? Like we had a terrible June. July, it finally started getting nice. We had a good July and August, I guess, but June was horrible. Just bad weather. It was smoke from Canada coming down, and it was terrible. So, yeah, I don't know about climate change as much as maybe man-made issues we're dealing with.
It's Canadians, am I right?
Yeah, Nick, you sent a couple of wild texts from Ben Shapiro today to me, huh?
Yeah, no, I was perusing through Facebook and I saw both of these, and it was interesting because I saw Matt Fradd on Pints with Aquinas. He put out this like 7-minute clip with, I'm forgetting what his name is. I think it's like Father Sharon, or I'm probably butchering his name, but it's
Jason Sharon.
Sharon, yeah, it's that Eastern Catholic priest.
Okay, yeah.
And in that Eastern Catholic priest was in the Pints with Aquinas studio, got invited to go on Ben Shapiro's show for like 7 minutes, and basically Shapiro was asking a lot of really good questions that like we're all asking, but it again doesn't take a genius to really be asking these types of questions. And so, but then what was interesting is that so he was asking questions like, okay, is the Catholic Church headed towards a schism? Like, is Pope Francis teaching error? Like, what is the Catholic procedure on that? What do you guys do? Father, he gave like a bunch of long descriptions, but then I texted Anthony these screenshots. This is what he put on like 2 hours ago on Facebook. This was one of his comments in the comments of one of his posts.
I think it starts out with this one. But
Yeah, it starts out with that one. Yeah. So it turns out that the American Catholics who are critical of Pope Francis are right. In essence, he is a liberation theologist who now occupies the office of the papacy.
Pretty accurate.
The next one, I think, in my opinion, the next one was the more interesting. And Catholics all over the world are very aware of the schism Pope Francis has now created within the Catholic Church because of his many overtures on social redistributionism and climate change. Just to mention, what I find funny is that, again, Ben Shapiro, he's looking at this from primarily like an economic place, which, again, like even in the interview, he did touch on some social issues. It's just in these comments, it's mainly focused on these. But we can lump in so many more issues when it comes to appointments, when it comes to ambiguity, when it comes to just the way of behavior, acting in a manner which is going to be, like schismatic with the church of all time. So I just think it's really cool that the world is noticing this.
So for everything like Shapiro mentioned, or everything he could have mentioned, like, of course, I don't agree with Francis's thoughts on those two issues, the redistributionism and climate change, but those are like two I'm least concerned about personally. You know what I mean? Like, obviously they're not good, but it's more the flirting with heresy that concerns me.
I mean, listen, the danger. Well, he's right about climate change, because climate change. Look, like as Catholics, we're supposed to care for the earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. You know what, guys? Maybe we didn't even do any of this, but subscribe, right? Is there any new Apple reviews?
I haven't looked. You keep going.
You take a look, because I want to address this stuff. Just subscribe, like all that. Join our locals. We're gonna do something on locals tonight. We also have Father Maudsley on Saturday. Now, Father Maudsley on Saturday, there's no way we can do what we want to talk about on YouTube. So we're going to probably do like a half hour on YouTube just to get everybody that's going to catch it and say, guys, come over to Locals, because we are going to be talking about the conversion of the Amish
His
with Father
newest book.
Maudsley. And that is going to be a very interesting show. He wrote a book on it. And our tech overlords do not like when you mention that the people of the old covenant. So, but the Ben Shapiro stuff, the climate change thing is, as Catholics, we're supposed to care for the earth, right? Like you are. Like, there's nothing wrong with conservation, caring for your own environment, your local community. You don't want to pollute your waterways, things like that. But the problem with what Francis is doing is he's getting caught up in what? You got a good one?
Oh, there's some good ones.
All right, so we'll get to those in a minute. But you could see what they're using the climate change that, and you know what, they're going to probably strike this video or put a warning on it because we're discussing this even, but they're using it for a power grab. Like, that's all this is about. I mean, we were over the whole summer, I think I saw 4 whales get killed on Long Island because they keep putting these windmills out in the middle of the water, and something's going on with these windmills and it's killing whales. And every time they try to do something with green energy, it winds up destroying something else. So
what do they do with the whale after they kill it?
I think they're supposed to blow it up, right?
I think so, yeah.
Most of us have probably seen that old video.
Yeah, I don't know what else you would do with it. Maybe,
can you eat whale?
It depends how it died, I would imagine, but I don't think you could eat that kind of whale. I mean, there's whale blubber. You could use the oil and stuff like that. Yeah, everybody's saying blow it up. We need a code word for, yeah, we do. We need code words for everything these days. But the Ben Shapiro stuff, what really I wanted to kind of lead into, I texted Rob earlier an article and he's like, I'm so tired of talking about the synod. But there was something really
so tiresome.
It's exhausting, and everybody just keeps talking about it. But there was this article that I think it was Father Reese wrote, and one of the main things that are sticking out in it is this. Listen to this quote: "Progressives are thinking too small through the synod. Francis is calling for a spiritual shakeup much greater than anyone can imagine. He's not looking for a few thousand new clergy to keep the church going. He wants a mass movement that makes the gospel alive in our time. On the other hand, conservative Catholics fear this movement will get out of control. They want the spirit to be under the thumb of the hierarchy."
Now, doesn't that make so much more sense after hearing about Desjardins' Omega Point BS?
Mm-hmm. So I think in a way, Father Reese is right here. Like, we're all hyper-focused on a female diaconate.
Australians are weird. Look at this.
All right.
Okay, Joe.
All right. So we're all hyper-focused on these, the blessing of same-sex unions and the female diaconate. We're all hyper-focused on these certain things, and it's almost like that's a distraction, because what I think is coming is something so much more devious, and it has to do with human fraternity and opening communion up, and it has to do with that video I posted today as a short on our channel, where it was a Muslim man goes up and receives communion and doesn't actually receive it and walks away. Because I think Francis is looking to open communion up to everyone. And you could see he was flirting with that earlier with interfaith communion with other denominations and things like that. So what we're all worried about with the doctrinal stuff with the female diaconate, what's really going to happen is mass sacrilege with the Eucharist on a level I don't think anybody has even thought to comprehend.
And it's a good point that you're making, just because it's like, really, when it comes down to it, the Eucharist is always going to be the thing that the devil is going to target in the most direct way. And so while these like side issues on human sexuality and the priesthood could be kind of like the cherries on top, if you will, you're probably right. It is going to be something like this, because I mean, like, that's what it was the last time, right? When it came to the 1960s revolutions, it was all somehow centered around this. And you guys have probably seen like that. You see it on YouTube all the time, of that like 4-point plan of the St. Gallen Mafia. And one of them is, intercommunion between Catholics and Lutherans, but just take that times the world, intercommune with anybody.
Yeah, it's going to be way bigger than Lutherans. And it's, the sexuality stuff interplays with it, because the idea is, I mean, Francis keeps saying it, everyone is welcome. Everyone is well. And he keeps hammering this down. And it's it's unity without truth, right? Like it's love without truth. It's letting doctrine just be nothing. Like, don't worry about doctrine. Yeah, the doctrine's there, but don't worry about it. We just want everybody to come in. But the irony of this is the more he wants to open communion up, the more people leave the church. It's not opening communion up and bringing people in. The more he talks about human fraternity, the more humanity falls apart.
Well, it's related to the other article you sent me, which was about the Archdiocese of Seattle
100%.
is asking all their priests to resign, to submit a letter of resignation, because they have to close 50% of their parishes next year, and they're going to reassign all of their priests according to this consolidation. And
okay, so
my whole life.
Let's run through that. So let's bring that article. Go ahead.
My whole life.
I'm sorry.
What do you want to do?
All right, let's.
Do you want to do the Apple reviews quick?
No, because we may cut this segment up and put it as a clip. So let's stick with what we're doing, and then we'll in between this segment and the next one we'll read the Apple reviews. So the Seattle Archdiocese asked pastors to resign ahead of parish consolidation. So the Archdiocese of Seattle has requested that all parish pastors submit their resignations from office as part of the years-long parish consolidation process across the Archdiocese, which is expected to reduce the number of parishes by more than half. Archdiocesan officials say the move comes after considerable consultation with clergy and is meant to streamline complicated process of joining parishes. But some in the Archdiocese have said the request was unsettling, and their concern points to the challenge of making diocesan changes amid dwindling clerical trust in diocesan bishops. In the email, Seattle's vicar for clergy notified priests that the Archdiocesan Parish Consolidation Project called partner. I mean, they always have the funniest names for these things, right? Like partners in the gospel would require that all priests in the parish ministry be formally reassigned next year, even those who will continue serving in the same community or where you're assigned. So it's like, Rob, what you texted me earlier in the group, it's like we've been worried about the coming vocations crisis for so long that no one took the time to realize that it wouldn't materialize because most parishes would have to close due to no attendance. It's wild what's going on.
In my diocese, I can guarantee there will be less than half the number of parishes 10, 15 years from now. There's just no need for them. Like the parish I'm a part of was probably 15 years ago consolidated with the next parish over, but yet there's 60 people at a Sunday mass when I go, and of those 60 people there's 8 of us that are under the age of 50 or 60. Like there will be no need for that parish 10 years from now, whether there's a priest available or not. I bet we will have more priests than necessary in 10 or 15 years in this country.
Well, the only reason I say maybe not is because some of the priests are so old, right?
Well,
like there's going to be
not in our diocese. In our diocese,
yeah.
A lot of our priests now are my age.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because you have so pretty much every diocese is doing this, right? They're giving it some silly name as if it's a good thing. And in reality, they're just closing half their parishes because they can't afford it. Half these dioceses have so many lawsuits from the sex abuse crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't afford to even maintain these parishes. The people that go, especially after COVID, man, COVID just basically they told everyone, yeah, you don't need to go to mass anymore. You can watch it on TV. And people just stopped donating, and people probably didn't come back. Our diocese is already consolidated and closed parishes and schools, moved priests. It was called All Things New. See, it's always this like communist language that they put in. It's like the Democrats do and everything. They're like the Build Back Better program. It's
Great leap forward. That only killed more people than anything else in the history of the world.
It's so crazy.
No, this is how it is. Like even in my diocese is like, I would argue, and see this, it's kind of hard, but it's like, I would say leaning toward conservative world, right? At least in the Catholic spectrum. But even in that, we have probably, I would estimate in the entire diocese, maybe, and so it's like a diocese of 500,000, right? And you're going to have like 12% actually go to mass. Of that, you're going to have like 100 priests. But of that 100 priests, over 60+% of them, right, are retired and are living in, essentially the priest retired home. And then the rest are going to be, so it's like, where I go to mass, right? It's a massive cathedral, has the Latin mass. And so there's 3 priests. There's a ton of movement and stuff going on there. But then when you go to the other parishes, it's like 1 priest and like 1,500 people, or it's going to be 1 priest over 3 parishes or something. And what's interesting is that I have 2 friends who are in the diocesan priesthood formation, and they're always talking about like, oh, we need more priests. We need more priests. This year, my diocese didn't have any ordinations at all. Like, we need more priests. We need more priests. And I keep telling them, as well as the vocations director, you guys know how to get more vocations. It's not, how to, but the problem is that you're refusing to do what the church has always done.
Yep.
And because of that, because you think that you know better than literally the entire church of all time, it's just not going to work.
You could see any of the dioceses that actually have, like, that they still teach the faith in an orthodox manner, they always have more vocations. This new thing that they're trying to do by opening up communion to everybody. And the thing is that it's always been about like getting rid of clericalism in their mind, is just making the priesthood irrelevant and making the laity and the priesthood on the same level. And it's almost like there's nothing special about it. By the way, is the panel going to discuss the topic? Yes, that's
Maybe.
the main topic tonight.
We will in 5 hours.
We're definitely going to.
Not until we get a new pope.
But to your point, Anthony, here's my question for both of you two. So it's just like this. I mean, the way you tell, and this is what I've been kind of hammering on like for like 3 weeks now, but it's like the way that you tell like the goal or the mission of an organization or a group of people is by like their stated mission and purpose. And if the purpose of the Catholic Church in her divine constitution is to glorify God and to save souls, and then yet we see in this concerted effort that, especially since the council and the council's documents, as well as in this push for intercommunion, if the stated goal now is human fraternity and the union together of all people, can you really honestly say, yeah, this is where I'm going. Can you really honestly say that that is the Catholic Church? You can maybe say it's composed of people who are in the Catholic Church, but can you say that really that mission, that structure, that body is the Catholic Church? Because it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It's like if the stated mission of, XYZ corporation is to, sell potatoes, and then tomorrow it's just like, yeah, okay, so on like paper, sure, we have that, but we're going to reduce it now. We're never really going to focus on that anymore. Our desired mission now is to sell strawberries. Yeah. Right? You say, well, okay, your company is definitely changing in a way, especially if its stated goal was to sell potatoes. Well, how much more so? It's like, okay, if your stated goal is to save souls from damnation, from Satan, from hell, right? You even see this in the basic things like the confirmation, right? In the old rite, you're being armed as a soldier for Christ to go out and transform the world. But now it's like, okay, if we are all brothers and sisters in community. I watched that video of the Holy Father, right, over in Mongolia. I listened to it. Let me tell you this. I listened to that entire 3-hour-long conference. I listened to the entire thing because I was really interested to see what was going to happen. The only one that was at least somewhat truly based was the evangelical pastor who got up and was like, everyone needs to have a personal relationship with Christ and read the Bible. And I was just like, I may disagree with the evangelical on points of doctrine, but just that basic thing, 110% agree with you. But then you get up and you hear the Pope is basically saying, yeah, like Genghis Khan had a lot of good, and we should all just walk together as people of religion. That is not Catholic. Can you think of Pius XII getting up and saying such a thing? That's just not Catholic.
It's actually borderline pagan. I don't know.
It's naturalism. It's naturalism, because what it is, naturalism is just the denial of the supernatural. And I'm not saying that therefore the Holy Father is an open naturalist. Again, I can't read his heart, but that action, right, by itself is naturalism, because it's saying, really, is there really any real need to convert in the supernatural life? We saw this during, right, the pandemic. Everyone being locked up, the bishops saying no more masses, no more sacraments. That's a denial of the supernatural, and that's subverting the supernatural order under the natural order. That's a Freemasonic thing. That is just exactly where it is.
I wonder if most of these men doing all this even believe supernatural grace is conferred by the sacraments. Like,
no, because then they'd have to. I mean, they'd have to accept the whole concept of original sin, right? And we
they
know
don't.
they don't believe that.
What? Oh man.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm getting at. Because I'm like, if they like, this is the thing. Like, someone can give lip service and say, yeah, I believe that. Absolutely, I believe it. Right? I passed the class in seminary. I believe that. But the thing is, if you really genuinely believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, then you will act in a way in which is going to be befitting that. And so therefore you're going to say, yes, original sin, according to the dogma of the church, excludes someone from the beatific vision. Also, according to the dogma of the church, baptism, in whatever form that takes place in, is necessary for salvation. And dogma of the church, those who die in original sin, or even just original sin only or mortal sin, are deprived of the beatific vision. If that's the burden on your heart, that's a good sign. It's the burden of my father, St. Dominic, right? What shall become of poor sinners? But then it's like, if our new stated desire is to just, well, we think that Christ is a great model, a great teacher. We do believe he's the Son of God, but all he is he's a way of gathering everyone together, putting down our differences, and uniting around the table of love. Something like this.
Francis sounds more like a John Lennon lyric than he does like Jesus Christ, right?
In many ways,
like,
yes.
Like he does. It's like all you need is love. Imagine the lyrics to Imagine, things like that. It's almost a communist utopia on earth they're trying to bring about by just, oh guys, just don't worry about all the tricky stuff. Like they want to have treat others as you want to be treated, but they don't want any of the tricky stuff that causes division. But those things that cause division are actually what causes unity. It's like if you're not uniting around the truth, you're not uniting around anything. And you saw the way that that Brazilian bishop that handed the Eucharist over to a man wearing a kufi. I mean, he's not Catholic. He hands it over like nothing. The man walks away. He didn't even want it, or who knows what he did with it. Like, you really don't even know. So it's like you see the Muslim guy actually laughing at this idea of ecumenism. He's just going up to make a mockery of whatever they're doing there. So I don't know. Like, are they that naive to think that there can be some kind of unity between religions without?
I think the thing is, like, we look in an exacerbated fashion because we have been going to the Latin Mass, hearing good homilies, and reading traditional Catholic books. So therefore it makes sense that we're confused and bewildered by it. But when you go through the seminary formation in the conciliar church, as well as you're just, you put yourself in there as an incubator, right? In that incubation, and you just get very fermented in that mentality, then yeah, it makes absolute sense, right? That's why they think that's why they think of Father Ripperger or something like that is just like some extreme far right person or something, or that St. Alphonsus the Gory is just like a rigorist. I mean, they think these types of things. I hear all the time. I'll run into Catholics who maybe they know about the show or something, or they remember me from the Matt Fradd interview, and they'll say this to me all the time. I've heard this dozens of times. Aquinas was like good for his day, but I think we just need something new now. And I'm like, oh, you know what you remind me of? Pascendi, because Pope St. Pius X literally says, he who scorns scholasticism, there's no surer sign of a modernist than that. And I'm like, you really think that the modern hierarchy loves scholasticism?
No, I don't even think they've ever read any of it. I don't think they've ever read anything from Aquinas. But when we had Jay Dyer on, Jay Dyer was saying that they're planning this. What was it? The 1500th anniversary of Nicaea, or maybe they're doing something on the split, like from when the something about 2025, right? So what was the
1700 anniversary of the Council of Nicaea?
Something. So they're going to go something with East and West, and Francis is going to concede some like major points of contention between East and West in the sake of ecumenism. And he's going to so like it's going to look like this good thing, right? The East and West are finally uniting, but not at the cost of the truth. Like, we've hammered these things caused a schism for a reason. They caused a schism for a reason, because the East left because they didn't believe the truth. So you don't just go, all right, we'll let you have that one just for the sake of unity. This is crazy.
Yeah, how can you? I mean, we'll have to see what happens, because I've actually just never heard of that. But off the top of my head, I'm like, so what are you going to concede? Like papal infallibility, dogma, the Immaculate Conception, dogma, purgatory, dogma, indulgences, dogma. So what are you going to concede?
To be
You
fair,
can't-
if he concedes infallibility, it sure saves us a heck of a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and that would be pretty funny, because then you'd see the Pope splainers come out and be like, so what he really meant
What do
when
you
he said that we don't believe in papal infallibility is that technically he's protected because infallibility means X, and he doesn't know what he was saying. He probably just hasn't been exposed to the internet, and so maybe he just doesn't know. Some
I mean, he
insane.
clearly doesn't know anything about history.
Like
at least about the Mongols.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, there was a time when popes went out and convinced Genghis Khan to leave Rome away, right?
Well,
and say
that was Attila, right?
Yeah, Attila the Hun, right?
Yeah,
Same
Leo the
general
Great.
area. I'm just like, you can actually go out and do something positive instead of kind of go over and give basically a UN delegate style speech. I mean, that's just what this has become. It's unfortunately become that the Pope is essentially the chaplain of the UN and does what the UN wants. Because it's like, let's be honest, the liberal world economic order wants control when it comes to medicine, control when it comes to power, money, media, everything like this. But look at human history. Great kings have always known that the way that you really control people is also by religion, right? You see, for pragmatic reasons, medieval kings doing that. You see sultans in the time of the medieval Islam doing that as well. So it makes perfect sense to me that you would have at least some type of person go up and say, okay, downplay the negative influences of your religion, right? Really promote these types of good things like human fraternity, because it's easier to control people. I don't think that, again, I can't read the Holy Father's heart and say, like, this is his intention when it comes to all of this. But I'll be saying, like, look, if you're doing all these things, you can't tell me that this is a good idea.
Yeah. So, Carl, that's what we were just talking about, too, because when we had Jay Dyer on, he told us that. And I think Tim's conversations with Jay, he had the same conversations. But the irony is, it was Pope Leo the Great that got Attila the Hun out, right?
Yep.
I think
Pope Leo the Great. Yeah, Pope Leo the Great gets Attila the Hun out, while Pope Francis is saying, "Welcome the Huns back in." It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, did you guys catch the clip of Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, talking about immigration today?
Nope.
Announcing the apocalypse, essentially. They're getting 10,000 migrants a month. He goes out in front of all of his, everyone that basically was all rah-rah of we're a sanctuary city, open borders, all this stuff. And he says, I'm just telling all of you, I warned you about this a year ago, but to be honest, no, Eric Adams was the first one to say we're a sanctuary city. But he did say a year ago, he said, we cannot handle the migrants. This is going to be out of hand. We have to do something. They're at 150,000 migrants, illegal migrants in New York City. Now, if that's happening in New York City, that's happening all over the country at 10,000 a month. Like, this is unsustainable. Now, these people, they come, they're not just like saying, okay, figure it out here, go and figure out what you want to do. They're putting them up in like 5-star hotels. They're all getting a check every month. They're getting more than you would get if you got laid off from your job as an American citizen from unemployment. Like, they're getting like $5-6 grand a month as illegal immigrants coming into this country. It's so insane. And that border just stays open. And you just keep hearing about from Catholics in America. Like, these people won't realize until their hometown is taken over by immigration. And then you have Biden's DOJ trying to make it so that Texas cannot send, like, when they come in through Texas, they're not allowed to send them out to these other cities. They're going to try and do that. Like, that's the most evil thing I've ever heard. So you just want Texas to bear this burden when, I mean, I'm in New York and I don't want them sending them up here because I don't want my state getting destroyed. But how could you possibly expect one state to bear that burden? I think they'll find that's unconstitutional.
I don't think you can limit the motion of people between states according to the Constitution.
Why do you think the Constitution bears any weight with
That's
the
a good
current
point.
judicial?
That's a good point.
No, I'm serious, because all right. The scariest thing that we're seeing right now is that the Constitution, I mean, they just charged Alex Jones, one of the hosts on Alex Jones, they charged him for things he said on January 6th. Like, he wasn't even in the Capitol, and he's being charged for something that he said. Like, the First Amendment is meaningless, because when you get judges in that are activists, they don't care what the Constitution says. They're going to figure out a way to get around this stuff.
To be quite honest, as a Catholic, I don't really care what the Constitution says either, right? I mean, it's not the supreme law of the land. You know, that would be natural law and divine law, but yeah.
But yeah, well, I mean, I technically don't. Well,
I know.
If you have a country built on the Constitution, you want to at least know the laws that you're allowed to live by,
right.
You know? Yeah. I mean, I don't think that there's an absolute right to free speech, you know, as a Catholic, but either way, you don't want, we're getting in trouble for thought crimes and things like that now.
I forget if I heard it on your guys' show or if it was on like maybe Tim Cast IRL, because like I watch that every evening. I enjoy it a lot.
Are you equating us? Because that's kind of cool.
I mean,
I watch Tim Cast too. I like Tim Cast.
That, yeah, he'd be a cool guest to get on. You probably actually have a hard time getting him on, but you probably have better luck getting Pope Francis on than Tim. But one thing that was mentioned is, and I think that this is somewhat accurate. I think that when you study the Spanish Civil War, that we're in a very eerily similar time period, because you see that in the Spanish Civil War, it builds up over 3 or 4 decades of right and left really splitting apart. And then in each block, if you will, all these subset groups, right, who eventually have to kind of unite together in order to fight. And that's what I think that we could unfortunately be heading toward, because, and people say this all the time. This is the argument I hear all the time. They say, well, I don't think civil war can happen because look how lazy Americans are. Okay, I get that argument. But look, the nature of man is inclined toward sin and inclined toward evil. And really, when it comes to push comes to shove, I do think fundamentally that people are going to fight. Now, whether that's going to be in the context of like cities versus rural areas, county versus county, state versus state, it doesn't really matter in the beginning. In the beginning, it's just going to be sure chaos. In the very beginning,
like it was in Spain.
Exactly.
It was like 6 groups all fighting each other, and eventually they formed 2 rough coalitions.
Yeah,
and that's what I think could very easily happen. You could see, a military leader rise up. You could see, Generalissimo.
Did you guys ever see There Be Dragons? I've mentioned it a few times on the show.
Movie again.
So, the reason I mention it is because it's about the Spanish Civil War, and the language they're using in the movie is the same language you're hearing today. So like the ones like fascist, communist, like you're seeing the same language between right and left that was going on during the Spanish Civil War in our own country. I also think we're heading towards something like Quibejo, like what happened in what Our Lady of Quibejo, where you had the Hutus and the Tutsis.
But we don't have ethnic groups.
It won't have to be about ethnic group, but it could just be ideological.
That's like in the sense that like whenever that uprising took place, you saw the Hutus literally just like go next door and murder their Tutsi neighbors. That's something I thought about before too, because like, I mean, it just depends on where you live, because it's like, do I think that would happen on a very mass scale in every area? No, because a lot of people are somewhat chill, and they'll be like, okay, we disagree, but let's just not kill each other. But I do think if you live in big cities, oh man, you got to get out of the cities, because it's going to hit the fan so bad. Because like, let's be honest, all the riots, they don't take place in little small towns. Little small towns like where I live, there's plenty of Democrats, right? There's plenty of Democrats. There's plenty of Republicans. But whenever the 2020 stuff was going on, quiet downtown, nothing was going on. But if you were to go over, 20 miles to Austin, right? Oh, they were up on the bridges. They were on the highways. They were storming the police buildings. And that was just an excuse to get out and do something. How much more so when they think in their minds, oh, we can truly be done with these, quote, right-wing extremists. We can truly be done with them.
I don't think there's anything they wouldn't do to be rid of us.
No, look at what they're doing with Trump.
Yeah, and it's way more than Trump. Like what they did with those guys that they just sentenced, like It's just so heartbreaking, man.
Insane. Absolutely insane.
And the way that they're reveling in it, it's like these are fathers. Like, it's just so evil. Like the level of evil that they are capable of. They'll sit there and talk about, oh, the Nazis this, the Nazis that. It's like they don't get that they would be the Nazis. Like,
And notice how like I read this today. I forget the exact amount. I think it was some crazy multi-million-dollar payment. But like the city of Denver ended up having to pay for all of the, like, essentially arrests and everything related to that of all the riots in 2020. But yet we see these people who may have just been hanging around the Capitol, sightseeing, going on tours, or just were a sheep in the crowd, if you will, and they're being sentenced for decades.
Enrique Tarrio wasn't even at the Capitol.
Exactly. They're being sentenced for decades for thought crimes, for all these types of things. And this is what I'm saying. Like, you're going to get to a point where eventually it's just going to break. And I think that a lot of people on the right are waking up. You're seeing more and more of that when it comes to like the boycott with Bud Light, the boycott with Target, and then Sound of Freedom, Richmond, north of Richmond. You see these like a pop culture, subculture element that's rising up of people who are very, very frustrated. I talk to people all the time. You guys talk to people all the time. You guys know, whether it's online, whether it's in person, people, they're sounding way more base than they were 5 years ago. And much more
I don't know, man. I think they were at the same place when they elected Trump the first time.
I think it's.
I
think it's different. It feels different. Because it's not necessarily what we've come to expect from the right. It's not. A lot of them aren't even really Republican, right? I mean, the whole Richmond north of Richmond.
Has nothing to do with the Republican Party.
Has nothing to do with the Republican Party, right? It's more of a populist,
that scares them more than anything. They
right, because it scares the Republicans that are part of the Uniparty too.
Exactly. That's why when you look at people like Mike Pence as like the perfect example, I knew this going into watching the first debate that he was going to sound exactly like a 1990s, early 2000s Bush style Republican. He was going to act just like Dick Cheney, if you will.
I was going to say, did you see the Dick Cheney video that just released?
No.
What is this?
It's him more or less telling people to never vote for Trump.
Yeah, I'm not surprised because see, the thing is like when you look at
let me see if I can find
it like that, the neocons and the Uniparty, they are so deathly scared of populism, and so are the Democrats. Both sides are completely scared of that, and that's why this is one reason I do love the MAGA movement, because it is a movement of people who, yes, you have a lot of conservatives in it, but you also have a lot of moderates, a lot of independents, a lot of populists, people who are just average people coming together and voting. And people, they act, and we get into these debates, you guys and I all the time about like what's going to happen in the next election. We got to remember this though. Even though the last election had a lot of fishy things going on, still the vote total when it came down to just the battleground states was like 42,000 votes that Trump needed to make up. Just 42,000.
Yeah, but Nick, you make it like he didn't really have those. Like, come on. Like, come on, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't even care about, like, I just don't see any scenario where they'll ever let him in. Like, they're just never going to let him in.
I don't know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, the way I look at it is you can either have that opinion, which to me, I'm just like, where does that get? What's the end of that? What's the end of the purpose?
No, I know it's being black-pilled on politics, but
you guys didn't see this?
No, it's it.
So evil.
In our nation's 246-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. He tried to steal the last.
Not even the guy who shot his friend in the face.
Using lies and violence to keep himself in power after the voters had rejected him. He is a coward. A real man wouldn't lie to his supporters. He lost his election, and he lost big. I know it, he knows it, and deep down, I think most Republicans know it. In our nation's 200...
This guy is an absolutely bloodthirsty warmonger.
Dude, the things...
Any soapbox to stand on, say he is the most dangerous. Are you joking? Ask all of the Iraqis who is the most dangerous person in America. A lot of the older ones.
The amount of people that died at the hands of decisions Dick Cheney made is incalculable. Exactly. Millions of people die because of Dick Cheney. Like the idea that he would say Donald Trump is the greatest threat to anything. I just look, I know you are more hopeful politically than I am, Nick.
I'm more hopeful not because I don't think that there's like it's going to be a massive uphill battle and absolutely insane, but I'm just hopeful just because I recognize that when you do look at where culture's moving, right? There's so many people who are absolutely just sick of the system. Now, will that be enough votes to carry him over? I don't know. Will that be enough at least
I just think that like you're mentioning Richmond, north of Richmond, you're mentioning Bud Light, you're mentioning all these cultural things that are happening, and I'm seeing men doing decades in prison for going to a parade.
Exactly. But see, that's the thing. So you see that, but you only start doing that when you get scared, when you get really, really scared, at least in this type of context, right? You might have a dictatorship context where it's just like this guy's been in power for forever. And so he does this all the time. But this stuff is very, very new. And because it's very, very new, they're getting scared. They're absolutely like, we got into this debate. I say we, but I mean just like the broader right. Like, back in November of last year after the midterms, they were like, okay, does the uniparty want to like promote Trump to be the nominee because they're scared of him, or like prevent him from being the nominee because they're scared of him, or promote him because they think he'd be the easiest to beat? I'm convinced that they are deathly scared of this individual. And they're deathly scared of this individual because not just because of all the indictments that they've hurled at him, because I think that's the surest proof, but because he is the only person who is going to absolutely go and not just clean house, but also at the same time stop this stupid war from going on, which makes them a lot of money. Like the way that
the war scares me more than anything.
Dick Cheney should have rephrased it. And he should be like, yeah, Donald Trump is the absolute like biggest threat to the war-making machine because Trump is not interested in wars.
Did you guys see what Elon got himself in trouble over just recently?
With the ADL?
No, ADL? Well, that too, but I guess in a new biography, he was talking about how when he realized that Ukrainian drone boats were about to attack Russia's fleet, he turned off Starlink in the area and they all lost connection. And
what?
Well, and he says he made Starlink so people could connect to the internet for education and for watching Netflix, not for making war. So when he heard that Ukraine was using Starlink to use drones to attack Russia, he turned it off, and now everyone's pissed at him.
Yeah, that's insane, man. I've not heard that.
But I don't know what to make of Elon, because sometimes he says the right thing, but it's just, I think the whole thing behind him buying Twitter was just to get our information and our data, and I think he's going to try and use it with I just don't know what to make of the guy. I don't know. It's I'm not hopeful.
I just look at it because it's like this. I mean, okay, so he's not a saint, but he has done at least a lot of good. And the way I look at it is, it's like when it comes to like the sin of suspicion, I can't presume that he has an evil intention unless I see some like manifestly evil acts that he's like, out and about intending to do. Maybe someone, I'm not aware of any. Easily someone could probably pull something up that I'm just not aware of. But at least from the information that I'm privy of, I'm like, look, he's like a multi-billionaire interested in making money, and he seems to have at least some good leanings when it comes to stuff. I'll at least say that it's a good step in the right direction, as opposed to the last group that was running this place.
Yeah.
Like, how many years did we talk about X, Y, and Z person's been banned from Twitter? Yeah. Like, we were saying this like every day for freaking 10 years.
Yeah, let's hope it makes a change. I don't know, man. I almost like hate talking about politics because I'm just it's just every day it just gets harder and harder for me to even pay attention to this stuff. But all right, Rob, you want to read some reviews, then we'll get into the main story?
Yeah. Here we go.
Well, I don't think we're gonna do locals tonight. I think we'll just do this. We got a Saturday show and stuff, so we'll keep this one at like an hour and 15 tonight. But okay, so go ahead, read them.
Okay, let's see here. Let me bring it over to my other screen.
I think I know who this is.
The top one?
I think,
so. Yeah. This one actually is mostly just good. It's not even that funny.
Yeah, I read it though. It's a good one.
As a Protestant, this is my go-to Catholic podcast for an unbiased I mean, I don't think we're unbiased, but for an unbiased conversation alongside pints with Aquinas on what is going on in the church. Just when I think the guest has declared all they want to say on a subject, Anthony works that question and that we were all wanting to know.
Oh, that's a very nice thing to say. Thank you. All right, let's hear some fun.
Now here we go. Probably the most schismatic podcast I've come across. As a strict follower of the true church, led by its one true layman prophet, Mike Lewis, this is the most schismatic podcast I'd ever come across. These trads go as far to sometimes say slightly negative things about JP2. Don't they know he is called the Great for a reason? And even thinking slightly negative things about him is an act of schism. Plus, they criticize thrice charitable, most nuanced Michael Lofton, double schism. I had to add that in. Sorry, guys. As for the host, I had a boss who once told me there were two kinds of Italians. One is the short, fat, hairy Italian, probably named Mario, who may or may not be good at cooking pasta. Oh, I mispronounced that, didn't I, Anthony? It's Mario. Mario. The other is a loud type who works out so much that they are overweight from the muscles. Anthony manages to be both types at once. The other host, Rob, has a bright future running some kind of trad ASMR channel. If you silence the other bozo, I find his voice very relaxing if you need to sleep in a loud environment like a plane, train, or during a gunfight, or whenever Anthony's talking. And for that, I give this podcast 5 stars.
That's good.
And then this is update on cast members from Jersey Shore. I never watched Jersey Shore back in the day, so I never knew the situation as a solid Catholic. Looking forward to having Snooki and JWoww on to discuss them entering the convent.
Look at the situation.
Yeah, they called you the situation. And then there's, I think this is the last one. Anthony is a big mouth. Anthony is a big mouth with his gravelly voice and goofy laugh. Rob is super chill. That being said, don't change. I appreciate your content.
I can't believe, oh God, I can't believe you call it the situation. That is so ruthless.
Sparky, whoever you are, you're about to kill Anthony, I think.
That was pretty good. The situation. That's going to be your new nickname now.
Dude, I used to watch the Jersey Show. That was a funny show, man.
Hold on. Some of our audience might not know who the situation is.
Why? Who doesn't know?
Well, to be fair, I didn't know. I like me.
You don't know the situation? I mean, he was pretty big in pop culture. Yeah, there you go. Bring him up. Pop him up.
I can see it. Yeah, I can see it. Dang, yeah, I can see it.
Our audience is ruthless, man.
They're the best.
Holy cow. All right, let's get to the main story. I'm sorry, guys. I'm very tired tonight. I didn't mean to yawn. I know.
Yeah, Anthony actually had to work today because he was also off of work. He was actually pretty quiet online today. If you didn't notice, that's because he wasn't at work.
I had to actually work because I wasn't at work today. Oh man, that's the only time I really use Twitter is at work. Like if I'm home with the family, it's not like I'll pop in here.
I got an update from Christopher, I believe.
Oh yeah.
So it looks like from what I can see, his house is okay, or at least from where he is taking this video, but there's like plane dropping substances, like massive substances on the fire. Like
I'll throw it up on screen.
Yeah, this is crazy, dude.
Yeah, I want to see it. We have yeah, I still can't believe they called me the situation.
He says it's dropped on his fence line, so I'm hoping that means his house is okay. Oh wow. Man, okay, yeah, pull up that video. It's epic in the sense of video quality, but it's a absolutely sucky situation. So I don't know that.
You got it, Rob.
You probably won't be able to hear this since it's not in Chrome. And StreamYard only shares audio from
so that's tabs. The plane dropping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, check this out. Like, there's 2 of them, I think. I think there's 2 planes.
Wow.
So watch, just dumps a ton of stuff. And then
Is
the
that
next
what are they dumping there? Are they dumping water?
water.
It
But then
is water.
look at this next one. Look at this next
This
one.
that's a
Sounds like a B-52
727,
bomber.
I think.
That's not water, boys.
No, that's fire retardant.
Fire retardant. All right, so he's videoing from his house, you think?
It says from his fence line. So
But he's probably got a big piece of
No,
property.
they're dropping on his fence line.
Oh, okay, I get you. Okay. To
Okay,
protect
so it looks like his house is okay. Oh, thank God.
Dude,
man.
I'll just say, when you get a fire here in Central Texas during this time of year, it is absolutely scary. Last year there was four of them around where we live, 4 big massive fires, and it's seriously one match lit, it will be the entire afternoon. Dozens of firefighters out, and you'll lose easily 100 acres.
Okay, so Brian says the first plane was smoked to lead the very large air tanker in to show him where to drive. So that first plane wasn't dumping water?
Guess not.
I guess it was what? I guess it was a smoke. Yeah.
Wow.
Because so the big plane, the pilots, they can't see. They can see like straight out. They can't see down. So when they're coming in at that angle, they can't see where they need to drop. But if they drop smoke, that tells them then where to actually release the payload.
Dang.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. But at least they're putting the fires out here.
Yeah, as opposed to Canada, where they just let them burn.
The ones in Canada, they just let burn. Maui, I mean, the Maui stuff, man. I watched a couple of videos. My cousin sent me a video from like a botanist or an arborist. Just going over like what?
Arborist.
Yeah. Arborist, sorry. Yeah. You know what I mean. The situation retard. I said arborist instead of arborist.
Arborist.
Hey, at least you didn't say hoopla tonight. So
Hoopla.
You guys are gonna miss me when I'm gone. That's all I'll say. Yeah, but the arborist, just showing like how preposterous it is that like metal melted, but the trees are totally fine 10 feet away. It's just weird stuff happened there.
You'd be surprised. I mean, forest fires are weird. They really are.
yeah, you do generally with forest fires, you have to go and burn a part of the fire off and control it, just so that once the fire reaches that burned off spot, it doesn't have any like fuel left.
Yeah.
About a decade ago, there was a large fire up here, like 100,000 acres. Well, it wasn't originally that large. The Forest Service wanted to do a controlled burn ahead of the fire, to reduce the fuel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what they do is they take more or less ping pong balls filled with a napalm-like substance and drop these little flaming balls, along with the path they want to burn.
Yeah.
So they did that. As the wind shifted, it went from a 10,000 acre fire to a 100,000 acre fire.
Yeah, so they meant to do a controlled burn, and it wound up actually igniting because the wind
big
shift.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right, so let's get into the days of Noah, because this story really freaked me out, man. You're getting into the time of hybrids, chimeras, and apparently scientists have grown an entity that closely resembles an early human embryo without using sperm, eggs, or a womb. The Weizmann Institute team say their embryo model...
They need to rename their institute. This is not very wise.
I hate puns, Rob.
I'm
not a fan of puns. The Weizmann Institute says their embryo
very
model...
Amish name.
It is very... Made using stem cells, looks like a textbook example of a real 14-day-old embryo. It even released hormones that turned a pregnancy test positive in the lab. The ambition for embryo models is to provide an ethical way of understanding the earliest moments of our lives.
Bullshit.
Yeah, right. The first weeks after a sperm fertilizes an egg is a period of dramatic change, from a collection of indistinct cells to something that eventually becomes recognizable on a baby scan. The crucial time is a major source of miscarriage and birth defects were poorly understood. It's a black box, and that's not a cliche. Our knowledge is very limited. Why do you think they're doing this in reality?
Because this is just going to sound very harsh coming out of the gate. Well, it's probably not harsh to the viewers, but look, Satan fell. When you go and you look at the question in St. Thomas's Summa on the reason that Satan fell, he gives two reasons. One we hear all the time, which is he wanted to, be like the Most High, filled with pride and envy, etc. But the thing which we don't talk about as much, which I wish we did, is that he wanted to create with his own power aside from the power of God.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at that mentality and you apply that to contraception, you apply that to this situation, right? A bioethical situation, it is nothing more than people wanting to play God and say, we can be like the Most High because now we can create a human being and we don't need human beings to do that anymore.
That's really what they're doing. They're trying to create life from, you know what else turns pregnancy test positive? When Nick plays banjo.
What does that even mean? That's
saying that it turns the ladies on, Nick.
Okay.
It's like playing Wonderwall on an acoustic guitar.
The ladies love when Nick plays the banjo.
Apparently Margot doesn't like your banjo.
No, she's talking about the Embryo.
But I'd say my banjo playing is not fair, but yes, I agree with you, Marco. It is just disgusting because that is what it is. It is just people want to play God. I mean, just think about it. When you look back at the Tower of Babel, they wanted to be God. When you look at all of the movements throughout history, right? Movements which want to, these utopian style movements, right? Communism, the French Revolution, fill in the box. They want to recreate man in some form or fashion. Like, just think of the Soviet man. He was a person who was going to be totally content with being equal and serving the state, right? That doesn't exist, right? We know that there's always going to be sin and envy in every single person. Sorry to burst your bubble, guys. There'll never be such a thing as equality. That will never exist. There will always be a hierarchy because that is how God created the world. But this is exactly just the next stage in that. Man always is wanting to be like God. Think of the first lie, right? Receive this fruit and you can be as gods, right? And so what this is it's just the perversion of the natural order. That's all that it is.
It's so funny that you go back through the Old Testament and you see how little man has changed.
Exactly. There's nothing new under the sun.
Nothing new under the sun. We are completely doing the same exact things that we have always done. We just have different technology now. So we know they have like CRISPR technology, where CRISPR technology, they can gene edit. They
edit
can actually,
genomes, edit genomes.
Yeah, they can do gene editing. Do you think they have made human animal hybrids yet?
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. Because whenever I heard this initial story and I think of your question, I asked myself, is this really a human? Because like a human is a body and a soul composite, right? Body and soul together. But it's a rational soul that has an intellect and a free will. And so when I asked myself the question, is this a human? Here's the thing, y'all. Only like we can develop bodies. Like, so a husband and wife who come together and have a child, they, again, through the power of God, right? They're creating a human being, but they're creating primarily the body. It is a dogma of our faith that God infuses or puts inside of the body that rational soul. Now, there's a debate on when that happens. I won't get into that, but like he infuses that in there. So with these things, though, in test tubes, if they're animal, human, whatever, I think that they, if anything, would just be animal and not truly human. Maybe they could be like an insane aberration, a very intelligent, in air quotes.
Yeah, they would have human-like characteristics,
but not truly human.
But not human.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing that like it concerns me, because I'm like, we are messing around with a very, very grave thing. And do not think that God will not punish mankind for doing it. Look what he did to Babel.
Yeah.
Like don't assume that God is just not going to do anything about this type of stuff. He will do something about it.
I mean, we're told that the flood, at least in part, was necessary due to the sons of God, laying with, I forget exactly the
daughters of men, yeah. Or
the daughters of men, right? Whatever that means, whether that's just the righteous line of Seth laying with the unrighteous line of Cain, or it's some sort of,
Angel.
Nephilim hybrid thing, whatever that means. Like, yeah, God punished the entire world with a flood for that.
To answer this question, the answer would be no, in the sense of the final outcome. So in the final outcome, someone who, right, was born through in vitro fertilization, right, they would still very much so be human, but still the action in and of itself that got them to that point is still sinful.
Yeah, of course.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
I mean,
but it's still using a human sperm and a human embryo, so it is
exactly.
fully human and has a rational human soul. But I remember when there were debates on if a test tube baby would have a soul, things like that. Like they actually did have to talk about that. Like the things that mankind is doing now are so diabolical. Like you're talking IVF is witchcraft.
It's just,
I mean,
yeah, it is. It's just completely messing around with the natural order. And that's why but isn't it this with this specific story, right? Isn't what they're trying to get to be done is they're trying to do this apart from like sperm
From
and human.
any, right.
Yeah, they're just trying to do this out of the box with something else. And so this is why I'm saying like this, whatever this will be, if this works, will not be a human. As you said, Anthony, it may be human-like, but it is going to be some type of
Unless
diabolical.
God, in his mercy or providential will, were to actually ensoul this thing with an actual human soul.
so
Yeah.
now if it has the capacity to reason,
Then it would have a human soul.
Yeah, so it would have a human soul, but see, here's the scary thing, y'all. So without trying to be too scholastic about this, so we know that we're made in the image and likeness of God, right?
Mhm.
But what that means is that we have a rational soul, intellect, and will. But we're not the only beings made in the image and likeness of God. Angels are also made in the image and likeness of God because they have those capabilities as well, but they don't have a physical body innate to their nature like we do. But here's the thing: so we dogmatically teach that it is God who infuses the soul, right, into the human, the rational soul. And we have specifically condemned the idea that the rational soul is passed on through the man's sperm. We've condemned that idea. Now, here's the question, though. When it comes to a sensitive soul, meaning like an animal soul, right, or
Right.
vegetative soul,
Right.
is that, at least with the former, with the animals, is that passed on through the semen of the animal? We could say,
Because
yeah.
any cell
Mhm.
has at least a vegetative soul, if not a sensitive soul, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it has to be
Alive.
alive, right?
Yeah.
So
like Thomas would say, any living creature has a soul, not a soul like we have. Like even plants have a soul because it has life.
Yeah,
right?
so there's going to be exactly. Everything that a soul, you can think of a soul as just the life force.
it's the
of the body.
animating principle of the form.
Yeah, exactly. And so what's going to happen is that you can see a vegetative soul in plants, in the trees and the grass, etc. But the thing that's interesting about a vegetative soul is that they don't have mobility in their nature, right? So you don't see,
Right.
unless you're in Lord of the Rings, right? You're not going to see some type of tree-like creature walking around. But animals, they have what's called a sensitive soul, which means that they have mobility, right? They're able to move. And so
Which is what animal means.
Exactly, but they don't have the ability to reason, because think of it this way. We have the ability to pray, the ability to speak in language, the ability to build tools and understand tools. Animals at best can have simple communication. They can use something as a tool, but they can't build it. And they can understand a command only to try to pursue after whatever good they're seeking. So here's an example. I can teach my dog sit, and the dog knows, okay, if I perform this action, I am seeking after the good of this food or whatever, the treat or whatever. But they can't teach their offspring to sit, right? They can't do that. And so the point that we're trying to make is that the human soul, the rational soul, has the ability to conceive of universals, to speak, right, to engage in conversation. And the soul is going to be not, like up in my head or in my heart, but it's going to be all throughout the body equally. But here's the thing, when it comes to this specific situation, IVF, right, still be a human soul, because God can still, of course, link that, even if it's an egregious situation. But if we're trying to take something else, right? Again, like the soul's not passed through the human sperm, but if we're starting to fiddle around with this, at best, I think it would just end up being some type of hybrid style, very intelligent, lowercase, non-scholastic intelligent animal, some sensitive soul, some insane creature.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not going to get a superhuman that has talons of a lion or something. It's not going to be that. You're going to get a lion that has some human characteristic. Like they're in China, they were making chimera mice where it would have a human ear growing on it. And
we do that. I mean, that's how all the COVID vaccines were made.
Yeah.
Through humanized mice, humanized with stem cells from aborted children.
Dude, God is going to take his vengeance.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's something that I want to write a book one day on the subject of false Christs throughout history. And so I want to talk about, like, you know, the false Christs of the different, you know, heresies, like the Arian heresy, the Nestorian heresy, etc. But it's going to be so interesting getting to the many false Christs that we portray in common parlance and in common culture today, right? The hippie Christ, the non-judging Christ, the rainbow accepting Christ, all of these Christs. And we got to remember that God is just, and he is only going to permit this for some greater good to come out of it. But that greater good might be the very visible execution of his justice, and which would be good. Absolutely. Right. It may not be pleasant for our frail nature to behold, but it's something that we can rejoice in. I don't know what that is going to be, but all I'm saying is it's like, if you look at, you know, Our Lady of La Salette and Fatima, and you hear Our Lady constantly saying like, oh yeah, by the way, World War II happened because of blasphemy and skipping mass on Sundays and refusing to fast. What is going to happen when we see this stuff happen? Now, we know all this is going to happen, but what's going to end up happening?
Hey, I got a question. So you know how like all Protestants, like most Protestants in modern times, are like obsessed with the end times and they're always looking for the Antichrist and stuff. Do you think there was like an obsession during World War II where they thought Hitler was the Antichrist and they thought the end of the world was going? Like, you don't hear much about that, right? I wonder if there was Protestant preachers going, "This is the Antichrist, the end is nigh," things like that. It's something I really am curious about.
Yeah, you could. I mean, you know, what's interesting is that, like, so the early church, they thought that they were going to see, you know, the end of the world come nigh. Every generation has thought that. And it's not bad because, again, it's like we are commanded to. And I think if you love Christ, you want to pray the prayer at the very end of scripture, "Come, Lord Jesus," right? So you're looking for his coming because that is what the wise virgins are doing. They're looking for the signs of his coming. They're being diligent. But at the same time, we're always going to see antichrist-like figures arise in history, right? People who are against Christ Church, against Christ's teaching mission. So whether it be something like Mustache Man, or whether it be some type of, I think arguably what's even more dangerous in the spiritual context, mind you, than Mustache Man is a lot of, at least in the American context, those televangelists back in the 70s and 80s just saying, "Give money and God will bless you." Absolute wickedness. Absolute
the word of faith nonsense.
And they were just sleeping with prostitutes on the side. But then think of how many wolves in sheep's clothing that we have inside of the true Church of Christ, right? Who go unpunished and dirt is put under the rug. Not to open a whole can of worms here, but I'll just say this, at least on this matter. Maybe you guys want to say something. But so today I finally sat down, I watched a certain let's just put it this way without naming names, but a certain interesting priest here on YouTube who has recently come out holding at least the sedevacantist position for this current pope, right?
Father Altman?
Yeah, Father Altman. I know. I just never know.
Somebody asked in the comments, "Did you see Father Altman's video today?" I haven't. What was it?
I watched it. It's like, I think it's like 20-30 minutes long or something like that. Quality wise, like just the aesthetic level, pretty epic video, not gonna lie. But so, okay, I'll say this. I don't agree with his final conclusion because I have studied the scholastic debates around the idea of a heretical pope. And so I know that there's a lot of nuance and a lot of detail to it. But on another more subjective level, the thing that I will at least applaud him over is that he lists off 2020 of just the absolute insane things that have been going on right now. And when you look at, for instance, the intentional sweeping under the rug of these predators, right, reassigning them, and then reassigning the friends of these predators to commissions like the John Paul Commission on the Family, and then getting pro-abort atheist feminists, right, on the Pontifical Academy for Life. That is not the Catholic Church. Now, I will say this again, I do believe that Pope Francis is the Pope because I hold generally the position of John of St. Thomas, Cardinal Cajetan, the Dominican school of thought. And if you want to know more about that, I'll make a video on it. Trust me. But I do think that what we're going into when it comes to the world and when it comes to like secular society and the church, it's very clear that we're in the days that Our Lady of Good Success prophesied. I know that Father Isaac, I think he mentioned her whenever he was on the show with you guys, right? Our Lady of Good Success. If you guys don't know that apparition, go check it out. Fully approved by the church. She literally says, again, in the mid-20th century, hordes of Freemasonry will open up the pits of hell and corruption shall spread. There will be evil priests that will scandalize the faithful and make the lives of good priests harder. The sacraments will become much less frequent. Children will be corrupted. But what's the good news about all this? The final thing she says is that when all seems lost, then there'll be a great period of restoration. I do think we are in for a time of restoration.
Yeah, I think that we're going to see that. I really do. I think that we're going to get to the point where we think all hope is lost. And I think that people really need to prepare themselves for how bad it's going to, like you guys think it's bad now, it's going to get much worse. And it's going to scandalize a lot of us. And your faith is going to be tested and tried. It really is. I'll say this about Altman, because a lot of people are saying pray for Father Altman. I walked out of his talk at the Cancel Priest Conference. Not even so much for his opinion. I've heard many people come to the conclusion they don't think Francis is the Pope. What I saw was him riling up a crowd, a room full of people saying things, and the people were like, yeah, cheering. And I'm like, it just seemed like a dark spirit coming over people.
Yeah, and I didn't want a spirit of bitterness there, which, like, again, like the thing that I did see one person comment, I think it was on his video, was like, when you're being persecuted, right, as, like, for instance, if you're in the place of Christ being persecuted, then receive it as the person of Christ. Now, remember, Christ did not get up and accuse his accusers and point the finger. Now, does that mean that we necessarily never speak? No, but I would say that when you speak, there's going to, you look at the way, again, I blow this horn all the time, but you look at the way, as an example, that Archbishop Lefebvre handled all the stuff that came toward him. He said some very strong stuff, but when you go back and you listen to his recordings, it is coming from a man who is almost like weeping with sadness at Christ's bride being abused. It was never a personal vendetta for himself.
If you read his letter to confuse Catholics, I mean, that comes across so well, right? It just is his love for the church and for everyone in the church, and his love for Christ.
I hope that's how we're coming off, right? Like, I don't know what's going on. I try to always be clear about that. Like, I don't know, guys. So if you're looking for me to come down hard on an opinion, like this is what you should do, you're not going to get it, because I'm really trying my best to just remain humble about things, and I'm just trusting that God knows what's going on from all eternity. I believe that we still have the true presence of Christ in the Eucharist in the church, and we can't leave that. So, like, even Nick saying, like, it's as if there are two churches under this church. It seems that way, right? Like, I don't know how that works theologically. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at, like, just on a philosophical level, the basic idea of a body, it's like if there's just two groups inside of the church with two different ends, then there you go. It can be as simple as that. Yeah. But I fully agree with you, Anthony, because it's like, someone asked me the other day, like, with all this stuff going on, they're like, and I posted about it on Facebook, why don't you just become Orthodox? Why don't you just go become Protestant again or something like that? I will never, by God's grace, leave the Catholic Church. for many reasons. Number one, because my Protestant faith was absolutely destroyed by the early fathers, completely and utterly destroyed. And number two, I can never go to orthodoxy because all the reasons that I have problems right now with a lot of issues inside that the conciliar church is pushing is the same stuff that's going on in orthodoxy, right? It doesn't matter how pretty
100%.
the liturgy is.
Oh yeah, there's no escape from it. And even in sedevacantism, like you look at those guys, none of them agree with each other. The only thing they agree on is Novus Ordo Sect. Like,
yeah, I always tell people like I'm the most chill person when it comes to the sedes, but like I can never be one because to me it does seem like the ultimate spiritual black pill. But at the end of the day, like I will never, by God's grace, I will never leave the church. But that's why I encourage people like go and find good parishes that won't get destroyed, right? So that's why I always recommend like SSPX chapels or priories. Go find places like that and then build a good solid community around that, because trust me, when you're by yourself and your only main Catholic connection is like here online, you only get so far, right? I love the Telegram chat. You guys are awesome. Your guys' conversation are absolutely hilarious, right? And you guys edify each other very well. I think that's great.
I'll tell you, I will say something about our Telegram. Our Telegram is different from every other Telegram.
Dude, it is. That's the truest statement. Absolutely. It is. It's a fire Telegram. It's amazing.
We like I've seen the other Telegrams out there. They're all arguing with each other. Like our Telegram is like just genuine friends.
I was gonna say I consider everyone in that Telegram like a good friend, honestly.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. But I'm like, go seek out community in real life as well, like where you're at, and change the culture around you. Because like, look at St. Mary's, Kansas, the greatest example in the United States, right? That's an entire town filled with holy people who are striving after the true faith, and the fruit of it is the Immaculata. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen overnight where you live, but if you start small, finding good people, coming together for catechism, teaching your children, praying the rosary every single night, going to the traditional mass, right, every day if you're able to, then that's going to set you off on a great standard, and you're going to be protected, and you can live that Catholic life and be strengthened for the times ahead.
Yeah, my cousin, I was telling everybody the other day, my cousin had a conversion about a year ago. He was doing very like mainstream church stuff. So he goes to World Youth Day. And when he comes back from World Youth Day, he starts seeing like all the commentary about all the things that went on while he was there. And he starts reflecting on his experience. And he's asking me, he's like, I don't know, man. I just kind of feels really off about a lot of the things that happened there. And he found an SSPX parish. He's not even in America. He's I think he's in Argentina or something. Like, he's nuts, my cousin. He's always all over the place. And he drives 2 hours to go to a Latin mass on the everyone drink. I mentioned family. He's been really like just doing exactly what you're saying, finding tradition just to give himself a solid ground to stand on.
Just finding himself Catholicism, like legitimate, unbridled Catholic faith, is the most beautiful thing on God's green earth. And if you can find that and live in that, it is going to be an incubator that's going to help save your soul. That's why, like, I need your guys' help. Everyone pray for me, because I'm trying to like get up and move from where I'm at to go and live by either, the monastery in Oklahoma or in St. Mary's, Kansas, or just someplace where there's going to be daily access. I have 2 TLMs that are around me, both of which say the traditional mass for a lot of the weekdays. And so, for instance, every single day, it's usually around an hour I drive every single day to go to mass. But I go to daily mass, one, because I'm a single person, doesn't have a wife and kids, right? So I have that luxury, right? So I'm blessed in that respect. But like, it is an hour away. But I would easily make that sacrifice, because that is what's going to get me through the absolute insane world, right? And so hold on to that and make those sacrifices that are needed. Don't fall into that idea of despair, thinking you're alone. That's exactly what the devil wants. Go find a good place.
Nick goes to a diocesan Latin mass.
I go to a diocesan Latin mass as my main mass, right? So that's what I've been going to for the last 4 years. That's where I came into the church. Excuse me. But I also have an SSPX chapel that are near me, and so they generally have more daily masses. So I go that. That's exactly true. I find that generally speaking, the wisest thing that I've heard from an internet commentator was someone went up to he who is most prudent and thrice charitable and asked him, are the German bishops in schism, and he's because the SSPX are saying they are, and he said, well, I don't think that they are. Maybe some of them are just imprudent in their heart, but the SSPX needs to deal with their own schism first. I have the comment. I'm going to put it up in a video one day. But yeah, don't listen to the gaslighters out there. They're honestly, what I just don't understand about the Pope-splaining crowd is they spend all this time trying to convert the Orthodox when the Holy Father says quit trying to convince people to become Catholic. So I'm just like, who's the big dissenter here? That's what I'm asking.
Rob, post the Telegram link again because somebody's asking for the Telegram link.
You do have to.
And I also don't want anybody to think I was saying anything negative about Altman. I'm speaking about that specific talk that I watched. The spirit in the audience, I wasn't crazy about. Something didn't feel right, and I had to get out of there. Now I'll never, like, I try not to ever talk negative about other Catholics, so I'm not judging anything about Altman at all. I think that you need to make sure that we are praying for our enemies, and even the men that we think are so wicked in the church. Like, we have to pray for their conversion.
Yeah, absolutely correct, Sean.
This is definitely not a comment about someone specifically.
No, I just have the luxury of building my own chapel inside of my house and getting priests to come in and go behind my own personal iconostasis. But you must go to Father Jim Bob's Novus Ordo. You must.
Yeah. I agree with Iparos here. Like, and I don't mean to say, like, I'm not trying to denigrate anyone's faith, but yeah. I think they're right. I think they're right about the gaslighters' faith does seem weak, and we need to pray for them because of that.
I agree. I feel, I don't know if you guys think the same way, but I wonder how scared internally some of these guys must be. Just because, one, because think of this, your entire YouTube persona is literally getting up every single day and having to figure out a way to try to get the Pope out of something he said. That sounds like a terrible life to live. That sounds such a lame life. I'm like, no, I'll go make some
I could never not be honest about, like, what's on my heart and what's on my mind. Like, I could just never do that. I don't know.
How much like a waste of life that is in so many ways. Like, I would rather go and just make license plates at a jail or something than just get up every single day.
Just step out of the commentary arena. Like, just don't do commentary.
But I wonder also how scared they are, because I do think that what's going to happen, I do think that, like, especially after the synod, you're going to have some these massive things that we're going to talk about blow up, and you're going to see half of them just go completely off the rail and just say, look, I can't be Catholic anymore. I'm done. Like that, I would not be surprised at all. I would just be like, yeah, no, I get it. Like, you've worked your way into this corner. You've taken this position. That is the logical conclusion. The other crowd, literally, you will see this. Vatican News, it will say something like, we bless in certain contexts same-sex unions. The next video you'll see, is the Vatican really blessing same-sex unions? A 50-hour-long commentary on why, if you read a 2-minute article, it doesn't mean what it means.
Nick, didn't you actually have a video premiere as you were coming on here?
He did.
I had it 15 minutes before, but it was just a 5-minute video. So
okay.
I had it when you invited me on. I was already going to post it, so I was like, all right, well, it's 5 minutes. I'll do it 15 minutes before I.
If Lepanto Institute's getting on, we're going to hop off because I don't want to take any viewers from Michael Hitchborn. And I think who did he tell me he was gonna? I asked him to come on tonight because he really
after I posted the link, he texted you and said it's one of his favorite subjects.
Yeah, so the days of Noah returning. So me and him left off that we're gonna probably go on his channel soon, but I don't want to take viewers away from him. So everybody jump over to Lepanto Institute. I'm gonna jump in the chat over there and say hello to him, and then I'm gonna try and get some sleep tonight. So. Guys, please subscribe, share.
Let's let Nick.
I don't really
for his own channel.
I don't really got nothing to promote. The only thing I was gonna say, I guess, if I had to promote anything, is just that, so I'm back on. I'm making videos again, but most of my exactly.
We talked about it for 5 minutes. Come on.
Yeah, we had a good conversation. We brought scholasticism to it, the Old New Testament. The only thing I'm going to really be doing, so on my show, I think you can only go so far with Catholic commentary. And so I'm going to be doing some new stuff continuing forward. But a lot of my stuff, for the most part, is going to be really focusing in on scholasticism, because that's what I really enjoy and that's what I really love. And I'm wanting to truly help the faithful in understanding their faith way more, because trust me, if you guys get to start to understand scholasticism, you'll be able to completely rip to shreds, not just the insane Pope-splaining arguments, but just all the insanities coming into the church right now. You'll be able to work that way. So that's the only stuff coming on mine. If you guys want to, go follow my page on Instagram, right? The Traditional Thomist on Instagram, and then my personal account, Nick Cavazos. So you'll get some updates there all the time.
If there's topics you guys want us to discuss, leave comments in the I always read YouTube comments. So
we have to correct Anthony on his some of his incorrect takes on the Civil War.
What, the coming Civil War or the previous Civil War?
The only war the South talks about.
I'm open to learning anything, but the coming Civil War, I'm very much on board with. Something is approaching. I definitely think something is coming. And I think that people don't realize how easily something can get set off. And it doesn't require the entire country to be at war with each other. It requires a small percentage of the country to be fighting. And then two towns over, there could be no violence whatsoever. And you'd be living your normal daily life.
Exactly. We'll correct. At least I know Rob, he and I were talking yesterday in the chat about some mutual movies that we like. But as I always tell people, like, look, so you see scholastic books behind me, but then if you like rotate the camera up and you see
where's Lee?
You see Robert and Lee up there, right? And so I'm like, yeah, the Civil War is my second favorite subject. So someday we'll come on here and we'll do a whole Civil War show.
It'd be fun to get Charles on with you, Nick, to talk about it.
Charles and Mr. Cunningham.
Flanders?
And
yes. Ooh.
All of us. That would
be a super show.
One massive super show called.
I don't know if we can do that one on YouTube, guys.
We'll do that on Locals.
That actually would be epic. Not gonna lie, that'd be an epic show.
There's so much misinformation about the Civil War.
You know what we could do on Telegram, Nick? Because Telegram doesn't have any of the limitations. We could stream all 4.5 hours of Gods in General and have a conversation at the same time.
We should do something cool on Locals, man. Like you could do a lot more on Locals than you can on YouTube. Like we should try to maybe live stream watch The Godfather or something. Or something. I don't know, something
might actually
wild
get me to watch it finally.
We'll probably put it on Rumble though too. Like Rumble would take it easy.
We should do something interesting that nobody else is doing for our Locals audience. I'll think of something interesting. We'll figure it out.
Well, we still have to do the Catholic meme review show eventually.
I got some stuff I'll send you guys then.
You'll join us for that one. All right. So Father Maudsley on Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern. And we're going to do we'll do a half hour just to catch up with him on YouTube. And then we're going to jump over to Locals. And we're going to, because I've heard a few interviews with him and they're always on YouTube and he's always got to be careful what he says. And I want this man to be able to talk.
And it's not even because
it's anti-Amish.
Well, it's not. Yeah. It's not like E. Michael Jones. And I'm not even saying E. Michael Jones is anti-Amish because I don't believe he is, but some of the things that he talks about definitely can be construed that way. Whereas Father Maudsley, it's not even that. Like it's going to be like Old Testament typology, but the words he will trigger.
Yeah, talk about
algorithms.
Talk about barn raising, churning your own butter, all kinds of Amish stuff, right?
Yes, it's not anti-Amish at all. It's actually pro-Amish, and it's talking about praying for the conversion.
I would totally drive
perfidious Amish
a horse and buggy around if it was my world.
All right, man. Let's wrap this one up. We will see you guys on Saturday morning.
Have a good night, everyone.
Take care, you guys.